Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian Renteria, and this is the monthly recap for April and May. No, I did not lose my mind. It is the monthly recap for April and May, because I'm going to be honest, it was a weird, busy time for me schedule-wise and life-wise for April and May. So the movies I missed list is going to be very big, bigger than usual. And like I said, a lot of times there are a lot of movies, especially here on this list, that I definitely want to watch and I definitely will watch at some point. And also, some of it is also, limited releases, weird show times, no show times, and ultimately there's just movies on this list that I just didn't really want to watch. So I didn't go watch them. But this is a bigger list than I would have liked. And there are a lot of movies on this just missed completely list that I want to go watch. April just got away from me. May just got away from me. Like I mentioned, work-wise, life-wise, it got bad. It got bad. Like it just really got bad. So it got bad and heavy, or bad and busy, rather, not bad and heavy, bad and busy. So, but I'll fix all that. I will. So, all right, let's just start this because I don't want this episode to be so long. All right, so let's start off with the movies that I missed. We have Outcome on Apple TV, Beast, Exit 8, You, Me, and Tuscany, Faces of Death, Balls Up, which is a movie on Prime, Roommates, which is a movie on Netflix, Mother Mary, I Swear, Fuse, Apex, which is the other movie on Netflix, Over Your Dead Body, One Spool of Chocolate, Animal Farm, Deep Water, The Devil's Wear Prada 2, Remarkably Bright Creatures, Billie Eilish, Hit Me Hard and Soft, The Tour, Sheep Detectives, Is God Is, Tuner, I Love Boosters, Passenger, Pressure, and The Breadwinner. I know. Like I mentioned, a lot of movies, stop yelling at me. I know I missed some of them. I know. I'm going to get to it. Trust me. I will get to it. I have plenty of time now this summer to get to a lot of these. So don't worry about it. All right. Let's just talk about these. I'm not going to talk too much about a lot of these, especially the April movies, just because, they're obviously at this point now 2 months old. But again, I just don't want to make this episode too long, considering that I'm talking about 2 months worth of movies that I've watched. All right, so let's start off. Again, obviously, we'll start off with April. Super Mario Galaxy movie. I really enjoy the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as the first one, but I did have a good time. I will say, if you love Nintendo, if you love Mario, this thing is just bursting at the seams with references and homages and characters. The hardcores will get a real kick out of it. They did in my screening. The casuals, maybe a little bit too much going on, but I think you'll still have a good time. I smiled at a lot of references. It's a fine movie. It's a fun movie. I didn't see the hate, and I still don't see the hate for this movie that it's getting. I saw someone talk about this movie, and then like other people were like, yeah, I totally agree. Like they were saying this movie was an assault on film or something crazy to that extent. And immediately when I heard that, I didn't even see the movie. I saw that reaction first. My immediate reaction was settle the hell down. It's like, you could just say that you didn't like the movie. To say that it was an assault on film. If you're not a Nintendo guy, you're not a Mario, or even if you are a Nintendo or a Mario person, you can just say you don't like it. To say that it's insulting to movies and it's insulting to movie lovers, like, honestly, I don't care who that was. I don't remember who you were. And if this, if anyone knows who I'm talking about, like, get over yourself. Just tell that person to get over themselves. It's not that big of a deal. It's an animated movie. It's an animated Mario movie, a sequel that still made $1 billion. Let's calm the hell down. Saying it's an assault on film. There are plenty of other movies that we can talk about that are assault on films. I can tell you right now, one of them is not the Super Mario Galaxy movie. You want to talk about assault on film? Thrash. Sorry. I did just say trash. I saw that joke online, and it just stuck to me. Netflix dropped another shark movie, although this one was supposed to come out in theaters, believe it or not. Then I don't know if they saw the writing on the wall, or they were just like, no, we can't do it, as they were putting it together, and they just dropped it on Netflix. Thrash is basically a shark version of Crawl. If anyone saw Crawl, I recommend Crawl. Go watch Crawl. It's an alligator movie, or alligator, crocodile, I forgot which one it was. Much better than this. Very, very much better than this. There isn't really more to the movie, really. There's a bunch of characters that get stuck in town during a hurricane, and sharks happen to get caught up in the current, and they, end up in the town. There's potential with one of the characters. I felt like there could have been a very strong potential for a really good character arc with one of these characters, but it doesn't go anywhere. Movie's not interested in that. And the movie's barely interesting. It's kind of boring. And I don't like saying that about movies. The only thing this movie does is like tells you again that sharks are not, non-stop killing machines. They are killing machines, but they're not just going to kill you just to kill you. Like they go out of their way to be like, sharks are, they're territorial, they will attack you if provoked. But for the most part, they'll leave you alone. So credit to the movie for doing that. But yeah, this movie's not good. It's not. You want to watch it, you want to turn it on just to have it on and do something else while you're doing it. This is a perfect movie for that. The drama. Oh, the drama. I've never seen a discourse so vocal about a movie at that point when it came out. It's been happening a lot more recently too, with two other movies that we'll talk about later. But this is kind of like the beginning of it. And I don't know, maybe it's because my algorithm was fixing itself and it was just like, no, you want to be involved in this discussion. And usually when that kind of conversation happens, especially in my algorithm, it's like, oh, this movie's great, this movie's not good, visuals, casting, acting, what have you. This was like what would you do? What would you do in this situation? Are we all in agreement that so-and-so's character is the worst? What's the worst thing you've ever done? Which, by the way, that is the catalyst of what this movie is. What is the worst thing you've ever done? Do not play that game, please, especially if you're drunk or if you've been drinking. So for those not in the know somehow, this movie stars Robin Pattinson, Zendaya as a couple who are about to get married in a week. Literally, the timeline of the movie is a week. When a secret is revealed that throws everybody and everything into chaos. And this movie is layered. And I mean layered. And will have you thinking about a multitude of things and ultimately puts you in the position of answering and thinking about the situation and the main driving force of this movie. Or of that conversation as well. This movie is also awkward. It is an awkward movie. It puts you in many awkward situations that you feel secondhand embarrassment and cringe for some of them. Some ladies in my theater were very vocal about some of these scenes. There's a moment with Robin Pattinson about midway through the movie. I don't even think it's midway through the movie. I think it's a little bit more than that. That involves another supporting character. And they could not help themselves. And they were very, very like, what are you doing? They probably could have, if they could, they would reach into the screen and just tell them to stop. But my feed, and I think everybody's feed, hated, like just deep guttural, hated Rachel, who was played by Alana Haim in this movie. And maybe for a good reason. I didn't like her character either. I can see where her character's coming from. I think for a lot of things, you can kind of see where certain characters are coming from. But her character, there's no redeeming that character. There's no redeeming. I don't think there's a lot of redemption for these characters, really. I think some of them, it's like, yeah, but like, and then they do something and you're like, no, you deserve what you're doing. So yeah, I don't know. I had a lot more to say about the drama. I think I actually went into it, like really into it when I was talking about originally when I was going to do the April roundup. I think it's to a point where I was going to do a solo episode, and then obviously the moment passed. So, but I do think this will also benefit from another rewatch. So I definitely want to rewatch the drama before I get my set in stone feelings about the movie. But I did very much enjoy the drama when I watched it. Moving on to Normal. I had the pleasure of watching Normal early here in Chicago at Beyond Fest at the Music Box Theater. Not only that, I had the pleasure of watching it in 35mm with a short Q&A with the writer, Derek Kolstad, and star and producer, and Chicago's own, Bob Odenkirk. He was in attendance. That was really great. It was a packed theater. I think it was sold out. It was great energy, and it led to a very fun experience while watching this movie, which was a hell of a lot of fun. And then I watched it again when I went out of town, because I went with some people that had not watched it. And that audience, semi-packed theater as well, enjoyed it as well. They were not as rowdy, of course, as the Beyond Fest crowd, but, it was a regular screening. It wasn't a film festival screening. And it has comedy, it has action, it has drama, and it somehow just all clicks and it melds perfectly together. It never feels overly serious. It doesn't try to be John Wick or even Nobody, which, of course, both were written by Kolstad. And, of course, Nobody starring Bob Odenkirk. I would say this probably has more in line with Nobody, but Normal is very much kind of its own thing. I think it also has a little bit in more in common, rather, I should say, to the director's movie, his past movie, Free Fire. This is directed by Ben Wheatley, which I forgot about at a certain point, and I was like, oh, that's right, he directed this movie. But Ben Wheatley, I'm a big fan of, and his movie Free Fire, very much more in common with Nobody as well. And Ben Wheatley, by the way, Kill List, High Rise, Rebecca, Meg 2, The Trench, his movies that he's directed. Like I said, the movie, it doesn't take itself seriously. It borderlines on the comedy. It leans to hilarity with some of the action setups, but in a good way, not like trying to like be slapsticky. I think that's, has a certain connotation to it. But it's more like, oh my God, that person just got killed in the most hilarious way possible, but also the most brutal way possible that you can think of. So you can't help but laugh at a lot of it. Cast is great. Odenkirk is great. Henry Winkler is in here. He plays the mayor of the town. Got one of the loudest pops in my screening for good reason. So normal, very, very good. I highly enjoyed it. Let's move on to Lee Cornyn's The Mummy. I wanted to like this more than I did. I credit Lee Cornyn for wanting to do his own thing, his own spin on The Mummy. I thought about doing a full-blown horror movie. I thought doing a full-blown horror movie rather was a nice touch if it was executed well. And for the most part, it is. As a horror movie, it works. But I think the movie is still lacked a certain something. And I watched this a week after it came out because I went out of town. So maybe the reactions got to me ever so slightly, but I soaked in what was in front of me, and my honest reaction was this, and I agree with a lot of people, that this wasn't really a mummy movie. It's a possession movie with the mummy name slapped on it. I like the beginning, which promises us a mummy movie. I love the beginning, but it then goes into the possession kind of mummy route by the end. And again, I will always credit a writer or director for doing their own thing, their own take on an established IP, especially when it comes to horror, because a lot of the time we just get the same thing over and over again. The possession take on it was interesting. The possession mummy kind of take, I thought that was really good. I thought it could have gone somewhere. I just think we got a little bit more of it because it comes, like, the lore of it is pretty cool, but it just comes in so late into the movie where it's just like, I don't really care anymore. I'm watching a possession movie now. I'm not really watching the mother movie. And I keep mentioning possession because once everything starts going off, I will agree with people online that it just feels like a continuation of Cornyn's Evil Dead Rise, which I love. I love his Evil Dead Rise movie. But there are scenes and lines that if you close your eyes, and if I told you, hey, guess where this is from? If you watch enough horror movies, I think for the most part, you will guess you're watching an Evil Dead movie. You're not watching a mummy movie, which would be a compliment, again, because I really loved Evil Dead Rise, and a lot of people really liked Cornyn's Evil Dead Rise. But, it's that's not what you're directing. You're directing a mummy movie. All that said, movie is gory. This movie is disgusting. It has a lot of body horror stuff. It's a little mean. It also tries to give you some drama. The cast is doing the best of what they're given. I just want to like it more. I really wanted to like it more. I liked enough of it, but I wanted to like it more. All right, the final movie in April is Michael. First and foremost, despite the controversial nature, especially near the end of his life, Michael Jackson is well deserving of a biopic. No matter what, it's going to be successful. And it was. And it's still continuing to be successful. Jafar Jackson, his nephew, plays Michael. He does it pretty well. If he gets his mannerisms while performing to a T, hearing Jackson's music on the big screen is a lot of fun. But that just can't be the movie. And sometimes it feels like that's all it is. The movie doesn't even acknowledge the later half of his life, which I read they couldn't even do. That was the original plan. Originally, this movie ended differently. They were going to touch on the later half of his life, the accusations and everything like that. But legally, they couldn't. So they had to cut it, and they had to, do a new third act of the movie. Which on one end, I get. On the other end, they just put a title card at the end of the movie. And it completely ignores his life. And I get it. There's a lot of people that no matter what, we're going to ignore that part of his life, or we want to ignore that part of his life. But if you're going to do a biopic on someone as famous and as popular and as iconic as Michael Jackson, you have to talk about all the aspects of his life. And what the movie we got, great. I loved. I don't want to say I loved it. It was really good. But you're gonna do a biopic. Do a biopic. Don't. And I get they couldn't do it because of legal reasons, but there's ways around it, you know. And I think there's been talk about them doing a sequel and them actually talking about that aspect of his life. This movie's made enough money where they could do it, that they will do a sequel. And that's great. It's just really hard to, you know, it's the fan part of me is like, yes, love this movie. Great. You know, got to see Thriller, got to hear all his music. It was awesome. It was great. But the other part of me is like, you could do a biopic. Yeah, do a biopic, man. Like, you gotta talk about that stuff. It's gonna be hard, no matter what. But you gotta talk about it. And they don't. So, conflicting movie, to say the least. But I did enjoy Michael for what it was. For what they gave us, I enjoyed a majority of it. All right, those are the movies in April. Let's move on, talk about May. We're going to start off with Hokum. Neon is and has really stepped up their game in terms of competing with the other major studios when it comes to horror. You know, that includes A24. Damian McCarthy, who directed Oddity, his newest folk horror movie. Drama, really, if you want to go that far. Hokum is the latest addition to that. Movie stars Adam Scott as Ohm, H-O-M, a writer who goes to a small Ireland inn to scatter his parents' ashes when he suddenly gets entangled with a witch, and then spooky stuff ensues. I thought Hokum, was a more atmospherically eerie and creepy movie than a full-blown horror movie, which is probably what McCarthy wanted to do anyway. At least that's kind of the vibe I was getting. I don't think he ever wanted to go full-blown horror. I think he wanted to do more vibes, if you will, as opposed to jump scares. Although there is one jump scare in particular that got me very good, and I applaud you for that, McCarthy. I like the folk horror behind the movie. We do get an explanation of what the witch is and what they do, which feels appropriate when you think of the folk tales and horror that you read or hear about. I also like that we don't get to see too much of her, the witch, but when we do, I think it's enough. Most of the time, it's other creepy imagery and other specters that we follow. The much promoted bunny-looking character, which is there for the creepiness, really. I mean, you could have cut him out, and I think the movie still would have worked. But I enjoyed Hokum for what it was. It's definitely more spooky and eerie than full-blown horror. If you're, afraid of that, definitely more vibes. There's a couple jump scares in there. There's a few jump scares in there. So, just be aware of that. I heard someone call this a gateway horror, which I kind of agree with. It's not full-blown horror. It's more on the creepiness scale and vibe scale than, what we call horror. So, I liked it. I liked what it was. Mortal Kombat 2. I am part of the minority, it feels like, that actually mainly enjoyed the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie, flaws and all. And I'd hoped that we'd get a sequel, and finally did. And it came. And early word on the movie was very positive. A lot of people praised the updated fight scenes, the addition of new characters like Carl Urban as Johnny Cage and Adeline Rudolph as Katana, and the fact that the sequel kind of course-corrected itself to become, more of what fans expected a Mortal Kombat movie to be. But, because there's always a but, some have said that the movie's story and script were super thin, with some saying that the fight scenes aren't really that much better than the first movie, and some, mostly critics from the looks of it, say the movie's just too goofy and too scattered to really be coherent. Now, having seen the movie myself, and again, one of the rare movies that I've seen twice this year, yes, the story and script are a little wonky. It's a little thin. There is some wonky looking CG despite the bigger budget. This thing also moves at a breaking neck speed. And despite being the longest live action Mortal Kombat movie, it packs a lot in, like a lot. But it's also not enough. They could have let it breathe a little bit more. This movie is also a Johnny Cage and Katana movie. Much like the first movie being all about Lewis Tan's Cole Young and Scorpion and Sub-Zero, this movie was very much more a Cage and Katana movie. It kind of moved away from that. I thought the fight scenes looked pretty good. The highlight, of course, being the Liu Kang Kung Lao fight. That could have been because Ludi Lin and Max Swang, who play Kung Lao and Liu Kang and Kung Lao, are martial artists themselves, so their movements are just going to look better and more fluid than everybody else whose movements aren't like that. The gore, oh man, the gore, it is up like a lot. There's a lot of, this movie is gory, and this movie knows what it is and doesn't try to be anything different. I enjoyed the sequel a little bit more than the 2021 version. The 2021 movie, the first movie rather. Is it perfect? No, it's not. It is very much a video game adaptation of a fighting game movie with blood, violence, gore, and has been known to be cheesy at times. Yes, very much. That's what the series is. The series is cheesy, and everyone's like, "Oh, no one talks like that." That's how they talked in the games. What do you want? So I want to go a little bit into spoilers for this one. So a little spoiler warning here, and the timestamps are down below if you don't want to know anything. Like I mentioned, this thing it moves at a breakneck speed, and it hits the ground running once it makes the Katana entrance at the beginning, a young Katana at that, and we get introduced to Shao Kahn, played by Martin Ford, to great success. Shao Kahn is amazing in this movie. He is terrifying as he should be, and that is because Ford himself is a monster of a man in the nicest way possible. He seems like a very gentle giant. So we get the opening, and then we cut to the current time. We see adult Katana played terrifically by Adeline Rudolph, rather, training with Jade, played by Tati Gabrielle, her protector and her quote-unquote sister in the movie. And Adeline Rudolph's Katana, I don't know her like that, Rudolph's Katana is the most well-developed character in the entire movie. It is arguably, I mentioned being a Johnny Cage and Katana movie, but it's probably arguably more a Katana movie. Johnny has some development. He has the focus for a good majority of it too, but I don't know if he's not as fleshed out as Katana. And I think that's a script issue. I don't think it's a casting issue. I don't think it's because a Carl Urban issue. I think it's just because they wrote Katana so much more well and so much better. And then you get Johnny's intro, which is a teaser that they showed for one of Johnny Cage's movies, which plays out like a 80s, early 90s movie with the tropes and everything. My favorite is you can tell that it's a stuntman and it's not Johnny Cage, who again, of course, played by Urban. And I know the early talk was that Urban was, when he was cast as Johnny, is that he was too old. But I think it plays into the character that he's older and he's a washed up action movie star that the newer generation just doesn't know about, or doesn't care about, or doesn't respect enough. So he is still kind of that original Johnny Cage from the games, just much more older, which makes more sense in today's world. And of course, he gets recruited by Raiden and Sonya. And I mentioned the movie does kind of do a course correction of itself for the fans. One of the things that they correct, or retcon, if you will, is the powers. So the Arcana and the Dragon Marker aspect of it. Everybody has powers. Sonya is just firing pink rings of death at everybody. Liu Kang is throwing fireballs and just his flames at everyone and anything that moves. The champions have been chosen by the Elder Gods, and that's it. You don't need a Dragon Marker. You don't need any of that. It's like the Elder Gods are somewhere up there. They're like, you're fighting for us because you're one of the best that we got. You're fighting for us, and that's it. And there's only 5 of them. It's a 5-on-5 tournament. Earthrealm has Liu Kang, Sonya, Jax, Ko Young, and the reluctant Johnny Cage. Outworld, Shao Kahn, Katana, Jade, Sindel, Katana's mother, who has been turned into a revenant, and the resurrected Kung Lao, of course, who was a former champion of Earthrealm before he was killed in the last movie. And Sindel is, obviously Sindel, a fan favorite to a lot of people in the games. And yeah, they could have done more with her. They really could have done more with her. She is kind of underwritten. But one of the other things I want to mention is Cole Young, played once again by Lewis Tan. And we're on the spoiler territory, so he gets his head bashed in. Like, really bashed in. And then he gets, the stage that they're doing is the acid pool stage from the games, and they do it here. And anyway, he's the main character from the first movie, and he has like 5 minutes of screen time in this movie, only to die and literally be erased. And I know everyone hated Cole Young's character, mainly because he wasn't a character from the game, which is a fair criticism. And I had that one too. Like, I'm not gonna say that. It could have easily been Johnny or, someone else. Or someone else had been the main character of the first movie, like Liu Kang or Kung Lao or whatever. And Lewis Tan, I felt, got like a lot of hate. And he admits to it. He admits he got a lot of hate to it. And this really felt, killing off his character, really felt like, all right, guys, we heard you. You don't like Cole Young. Here. He's dead. His head gets smashed into little bits. His body gets thrown into a lake of acid. And that's it. That's all you guys got. And I think Lewis Tan deserved better. I really do. I really do. He's one of those guys where you can tell he's been putting in the work for a while, not just in the movie, just in general, that he deserves something. And I know that Lewis Tan kind of not so subtly, I don't know if this is the plan they're going with, or if it's just him like wishful thinking, like in the ear of the writers and directors of the movie. He wants to become Kenshi. And I thought they were going to do something with, like, Kenshi in the games, by the way, he's a blind swordsman who has powers. And my thought, because he was teasing that before the movie came out, so my thought was, oh, maybe they're just going to, like, Shao Kahn's just going to rip his eyes out of his head and, like, leave him for dead. And that's how they were going to kill him. They were just going to, like, he was going to just, tear his eyes out and, like, leave him for dead. No. His head got bashed in. I don't know how he comes back. I don't know if they're just going to bring him back, like, no, he looks like Cole Young, but that's not Cole Young. That's totally some other actor. That's totally some other person. So maybe they can bring him back. Who knows? I don't know. The one thing for me, and I'm sure for others, is the screen time for Scorpion Hanzo Hasashi. Of course, once again, played by the great Hiroyuki Sanada. And the return of Bihan, played by Joe Towson. Because he's Bihan. He's not Sub-Zero. Or really, he becomes Noob Saibot. In the games, it's a whole thing. I'm not going to get into that here. But they're really, they have really no script. They come in for the final act of the movie, and that's it. They come in for the final act, and that is all. And it's still pretty cool to see them in the final act. I feel like their characters, and it's really weird because this movie, like I mentioned, is jam-packed with things, but it moves in a neck-breaking pace. And Bihan just kind of becomes Noob Saibot. They never say his name, Noob Saibot, but fans know that he's Noob Saibot. And we don't get anything. We just get like a 5-second thing where he's like, "Oh, I'm no longer Sub-Zero," or "I am reborn." We don't get anything. And Taozum even released like a post of him in like burn makeup, because you remember he got burned in the last movie. So I assume that they probably shot something with Bihan in the burn makeup and him realizing like, oh, I can become something else now. But they never do that. So I don't know, that I hope that they bring, if they do a third one, it sounds like they're doing a third one. This movie was successful enough. I think they'll do a third one, and hopefully they bring Bihan back, and maybe he'll have a bigger role. Hopefully. I think, but for the purpose of the story, them not being in it enough, I think they serve the purpose of the story. They were only supposed to be at the end. And they told their story from the first movie. They didn't need that big chunk of time for the second movie. Like I said, this movie is a Katana Johnny Cage movie. So that's what it is. So I enjoyed Mortal Kombat 2. I feel like I'm losing steam on this conversation. So I enjoyed Mortal Kombat 2. They clearly were having fun with it. They clearly have a plan for the future. I'm excited to see what they do, especially with one particular character, Liu Kang. But I'm excited to see what they do. You can't blame the movie for knowing what it is. That's, yeah. All right, moving on. In the Gray, Guy Ritchie is back, and he's once again working with Henry Cavill, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Isa Gonzalez. This time as a unique team that works together to bring down Manny Salazar, a shady businessman who stole $1 billion and doesn't want to pay off his debt. I enjoyed In the Gray quite a bit. Although, admittedly, it has some issues. Ritchie also wrote the movie, and he really heavy-handedly throws everything at you in that first, act. Those first 2 acts, really. He lays everything out on why this team is going after Salazar, how shady he is. We also see how Gonzalez's character, Rachel, works and operates. She plays someone who was hired by these big, companies to get money back. This obviously being a bigger version of what they usually deal with. But she has two teams. She has the legal team, the moral team, if you will, and then she has the in the gray team, or the immoral team, as she calls it, which is led by Cavill and Gyllenhaal, plays Sid and Bronco, two former soldiers. Not necessarily said, but I think the way they move and the way they interact with each other, I think they're former soldiers who Rachel gets out of prison, and they basically kind of just work for her now because, they owe her, and they play the muscle card and deception and making sure things play in a way that works for Rachel's favor. And once you get to the second act, so the first act is really Isa Gonzalez movie. The second act of the movie and the third act in the movie is Cavill and Gyllenhaal, and putting the team, and what they do, make sure Rachel's as safe as possible when she meets Salazar. They plan the escape routes. They practice them over and over again to make sure that, if anything happens, they can get Rachel home. The montages and the quips between the characters are stronger here than anything else in that second half of the movie, when it's Gyllenhaal and Cavill working together. And that third act of the movie is just all action. Like I mentioned, I'm okay with it because it's great to watch. But with all that said, there's not enough Richie energy in that third act. We do get some of it, but it feels like a tame version of Richie that we've come to know and love. I also want to mention something that I noticed, because Gyllenhaal at times sounds like he's having an accent. I couldn't quite place where the accent is from. So if anyone knows where that accent is from, please let me know. It kind of sounds like he's trying to do a New York accent, but I don't know. In terms of the three, Cavill, Gyllenhaal look like they're having some fun together, although Cavill plays a little bit more straighter than he did in Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is the last movie he did with Richie, where he's having a lot of fun. And Gyllenhaal is fine here. He's playing a little bit more of a calmer version, a more serious version of the character than I could have seen. Been a little bit more eccentric, if you will, especially in the hands of Richie. And Gonzalez is fine. She plays a very serious character. She's very serious at her job. She's very good at her job. And she does have a moment where it kind of slips a little bit. It's great and it plays well. I just wish they could have played a little bit more into it. Rosamund Pike pops in for a very small role. She basically hires Rachel's character. I wanted more from Pike because it's Rosamund Pike. I just wanted more. So I mentioned, I enjoyed In the Gray for what it was. It moves. This thing is all gas, no stop. And maybe there's one little section where you can say it slows down, but after that, it stomps its foot on the gas all over again. Very quickly, Jack Ryan, Ghost War. I really like the TV series. I actually watched the last couple seasons before the movie came out, so I was in that world. And I was excited to see what they would do and what they had in store for us. And I'll be honest, I was a little underwhelmed. The fun banter between John Krasinski, Wendell Price, and Michael Kelly's characters, which was part of the show, was great to watch here again. Sienna Miller tags along now. She plays an MI6 agent that basically recruits Jack to help her take down a rogue group. The movie is just okay. It doesn't have the same sense the series had. It also doesn't help that the movie feels like at times they were shooting in front of a green screen. Like, there is a scene early on in the movie between Krasinski's Jack Ryan and Pierce's James Greer, where they're talking in a park, and the background just looks completely fake. Like, it's also, that scene is also weirdly lit. Like, the lighting isn't where it's supposed to be, so it just comes off a little harsh on them. I don't know. I wish the movie was better. It's fine for what it was. It's just to potentially end the Jack Ryan, run for John Krasinski with this. I don't know. I didn't like it. All right, moving on. The Mandalorian and Grogu, Star Wars, back on the big screen. And it's not a Jedi story. It's not a Skywalker story. No, it is a big screen debut of The Mandalorian and Grogu. And not what probably Lucasfilm and Disney expected in terms of success, but regardless of that, you have the big screen adventure where you deal with another deadly bounty hunter. You got the Hutts, you got the son of Jabba the Hutt and Rhoda, voiced rather by Jeremy Allen White. What you can kind of hear just a little bit, but his voice is altered where you can kind of hear it from there. A new handler in Colonel Ward, played by Sigourney Weaver, and it's not that bad, guys. It's not. It wasn't. It has its issues. Some of the CG is a little wonky at times, especially at the beginning. But you're taking a TV show and giving it a bigger budget, regardless of the IP. No matter what the movie is, you're going to get some wonky CG somewhere. One of the personal things for me is that it feels a tad long. I think it's a little longer than it's supposed to be. That said, this is every bit of an epic sci-fi adventure that is very much Star Wars. I know the fandom around Star Wars can be wild. It can be the Wild West sometimes. Let's just say, to put it nicely. But it's a big scale Star Wars Mandalorian movie through and through. Grogu also has his time to shine. He has his own little story in the middle of the movie. I mean, the title is The Mandalorian and Grogu. It is the Mandalorian show. In the movie, it's a show. But Grogu has his time to shine, and he gets to look cute while he's doing it too. The one thing I do want to mention quickly is I think it's really cool that they upfrontly credited the stunt performers in the Mandalorian suit. Brendan Wayne, the grandson of John Wayne, and Lateef Chowder, they get their credit in the opening screens and at the end. I love that. I think that's really cool. I think that's awesome. You don't get that a lot on movies, and you're getting it here. I think it's really great. It's a fine movie. Nothing overtly bad about the movie other than to say that it could have, you could have put this on Disney Plus, but then you wouldn't have gotten The Mandalorian and Grogu on the big screen. You make the argument that it's just 3 episodes blended together, but you got Star Wars back on the big screen, and it's different. Yeah, you guys always want something different. You guys don't want Jedi movies. You guys don't want Skywalker movies, and you finally get it, and this is what happens. But I think that has to do a lot with the next movie we're going to talk about, which is Obsession. Curry Barker, one of the minds behind the YouTube channel That's a Bad Idea, and a short filmmaker, broke onto the scene with Obsession, a modern day monkey paw movie, if you will, and what happens when you get exactly what you wish for. This movie got so much love. It has gotten so much love online. It has gotten so much love at the box office, and it continues to. Everyone is talking about this movie, and rightfully so, especially when it comes to one performance, and that performance, of course, belongs to the excellent Indy Navarrete, who plays our true victim in the movie. For those unaware, the movie follows Bear, played by Michael Johnson, who is also very good in this movie. I think he gets overshadowed by Navarrete. A lot of people get overshadowed by that. This whole cast is great, but he also plays very good. Who's madly in love with Nikki, played by Navarrete, but is too afraid to actually say it, even though he's given the chance to multiple times. So instead, he does a one-wish willow, or our monkey paw in the movie. And he wishes that Nikki is madly in love with him. And that's exactly what happens. Nikki becomes in love with Bear, like really in love with Bear. Like so much in love with Bear. Disturbingly in love with him. This movie is so layered. Like, on one end, you have Bear, who wants nothing more than to have his dream girl be with him, to the point that he uses something he doesn't even think would work to have her be in love with him, and just go along with it once he goes along once he realizes what it has become. You can say that he really becomes the villain, if you want to use that word. And a lot of people online have said that. And then you have Nikki, again, played wonderfully, disturbingly, by Indy Navarrete, who is so good here. And what she does with Nikki is being recognized by fans online and by everybody else. She does an amazing job, essentially playing really 3 characters here. 3 very different characters. You get to see the normal, regular Nikki for a little bit before we see the Nikki under the spell, let's call it. And what I love about her performance is that there are a handful of moments where she's playing those versions in the same scene. There's the normal, regular Nikki that breaks through from time to time, and it's so heartbreaking when she does. There are multiple moments when we get the OG Nikki. Like, there's one moment in particular that happens, and it changes the dynamic of Bear. And that's the moment where I mentioned that Bear becomes the victim. And it's a scene in the bedroom, but halfway through the movie, everyone knows what scene I'm talking about. And it's like, oh yeah, dude, you're the villain. Like, anybody was like, no, he's a good guy. It's like, that scene happens. And if you still think that Bear is a good guy after that scene where Nikki pleads with him to do something, and he's like, no. I mean, he doesn't say it like that, but he essentially says it like that. And you still think he's the good guy. Like, I don't think so. Then there's a second version, which is where she's under the spell. and she's being very overly lovey-dovey, calling him babe and honey and touchy. And at the beginning, it looks okay. Gets a nice little montage, and then slowly starts to turn sour, right? It's the version that Bear wants, and that's the kind of relationship he probably always wanted, and that's what he wished for. But it becomes, like I said, it becomes sour near the end. And then you get the final version, where it's not even a 10. It's like a 100. She's screaming, banging on stuff, pushing that boundary even for Bear, pushing the boundary for us, the audience. But the thing about that is that at that point, Wish Nikki knows what she is, or at least understands what she is, which makes that role and the movie and everything that she does at a certain point all the more heartbreaking and all the more frustrating. But Navarrete, she has such an expressional face as well that adds to her performance, from her smile to the frown that has been memed everywhere, that Focus Features and Blumhouse and all the studios are using now. She just throws herself into that role and deserves all the praise that she deserves. Give her all the flowers, because she is the movie. And like I mentioned, this cast is great. All the cast is great. But I think Navarrete just overtakes everything. And there's so much more to her performance I just can't put into words, and people smarter than me have articulated it better than me. And when it comes to the horror aspect of the movie, it all comes from Nikki and her weird movements. There is moments in this movie that involve her that literally, and I'm not just saying this to be, facetious or just or to be like, overly literal. It sent shivers in my body. There's a moment where she walked backwards. And I tell you, when that happens, with a combination with the score, whatever they were doing in that scene, it disturbed me in a way that I have not been disturbed in quite some time. The lighting around Nikki is also really good. Like, she was always lit well before the wish. And then once the wish happens, it's almost like supernatural. Like, shadows just follow her everywhere she goes. Anytime her and Bear are alone, her whole body almost is covered in darkness. There's a shadow over her body at all times. And sometimes the only thing that you see, you just barely see her face. But sometimes there is a weird gleam to her. It's not like demonic. It's just like this weird gleam that comes off her eyes. That's just, it's also very disturbing. I thought Obsession was great. At first, I didn't think I loved the movie as much as other people did. But then I started really just digging into it and thinking about it, and then hearing other people talk about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And it made me fall in love with the movie more. The Dead Meat podcast has a great episode talking about Obsession. And a lot of what they said, I totally agree with. So if you have the chance, go listen to that episode. It's very, very good. And I agree with a lot of what they said. A lot of my feelings. It's very, very rare when I listen to a podcast, whether I listen to them religiously or listen to them here and there, that I agree with everything they said on the podcast. And that is one of those episodes where I was like, completely 100% agree. So go listen to that if you can. But Obsession. And the reason why I mentioned The Mandalorian Grogu probably hasn't been doing that well is because of Obsession. Obsession came out a week before. And this movie is just highly successful at the box. It keeps breaking records. Like, this first weekend, it was like, oh, okay. That's pretty decent for, the fact this movie was made on a very modest budget. And it just made all this, and it just kept making money. And it kept making money. And it's been making money nonstop. The drop off for movies is usually, especially horror movies, especially in the summer, is very high. And this movie is just breaking all that. This movie made more money its second weekend, and it made more money its third weekend, and it's making even more money. It's projecting to make a lot more money every weekend it goes, because the word of mouth is just so good. And I'm sure a lot of that is also people who have seen it already taking their friends who have not seen it or going to watch it again. This movie has become something else. And a lot of that is because it is original. It is coming from someone. They put Curry Barker's name on it. Like, not everybody knew who Curry Barker was. That is, and this is a cast that doesn't have anybody like, yeah, Indy Navarrete probably has some fans from Superman and Lois, which is where a majority of people probably knew where she, that's where she was from. And, maybe there's enough people online who know who Curry Barker is and know Mike Tomlinson, is that his name? Who plays Bear's friend in the movie. But for the most part, this is a very unknown cast. No one knows who these people, as respectfully as possible, no one knows who these people were. They know now because they're just blowing up everywhere. This movie is great. It really is. And it's one of those movies where you can watch it for what it is, and then if you really want to sit down and talk about it and experience it and really just dig into it, it allows you to in such a great way. And let's move on to the other big horror movie, the last movie that we'll talk about here in May, Backrooms. Curry Barker, not the only horror man. Another director, younger than him, the youngest director to direct a movie, especially for A24, Kane Parsons. His feature film adaptation of Backrooms. He started off as a web series, turning, the simple was it creepypasta or 4chan? Not 4chan. I forgot where it was from. But he turned a simple picture into a web series and created a following for him. And enough that A24 was like, hey, come do this movie for us. Come do basically a feature adaptation of the Backrooms. And we'll give you Chetuel Ejiofor. We'll give you Renette Renzev as your leads. There's a lot to this movie. Like a lot. Backrooms is extremely layered. Much like the lore surrounding That's Thunder, in case, by the way, you heard it through the microphone. There's a lot of lore surrounding this whole IP. And here we follow Ejiofor as Clark. He's an owner of a furniture store who finds a basement to his store holds a secret entrance to a different dimension, to a strange place. Renzev plays Clark's therapist, Mary, who eventually ventures in to find him. And like I said, this is pretty solid. There are moments that are just really good at building up tension. Like when Clark first gets into the Backrooms. Like, it's like, some people will be like, oh my God, this is taking forever. It's like, no, it's building up that tension because Clark is just walking in. You don't know this place. He doesn't know what's around the corner. And if you know the games, you're like, we know what's around the corner sometimes. And in the middle of the movie is, I think, probably my favorite part of the movie. And it's really effective. It basically becomes not necessarily a found footage movie, but it has that, we're recording for the movie. And it's just so good. It's such a good middle of the movie because it builds up so much tension. Like, it just makes you uneasy around every corner. You don't know what's going to come out. And it just works so, and maybe it's because this movie is set in the 90s, so we're recording off a camcorder, and the effects just look interesting. Or not the effect, because it's not an effect, but it just, you had that feeling of, it's like, yeah, you're watching something we're probably not supposed to be watching. That's really great. I don't want to give too much away, because I tell you this movie, tell you to go in this movie as blind as possible, because I think if you read the theories, I mean, obviously you'll be spoiled by that, but if you read the theories about what this movie is, and you go in, you're kind of going in probably the wrong way. I think you have to experience this movie for what it is, and then go online and read the theories, read the explanations, and it will probably give you a better explanation of a lot of things. The final act does stumble upon itself a little bit, because it makes a big jump, and maybe one or two scenes could have bridged that gap a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there's just, yeah, I don't know. Like, one thing I loved, the reaction-wise, is that someone would say this movie was trying to be a movie with, trying to explain the ending, or the fact that they really like that the movie doesn't do the white lab coat explanation at the end. And if you know anything about movies, you know what we're talking about with that. But yeah, I liked it for what it was. I didn't really know anything too much about. I wasn't as familiar with Kane Parsons and his web series. I had seen a couple stuff. I hadn't seen a lot of it, but yeah, like, I don't know. I really like. I really like that middle section. The end, that final act, just really kind of stumbles upon itself. But reading everything and like reading people's theories and what could have been and what could it potentially lead to, I think it's great. I think vibe wise, very much succeeds on what it's doing. Yeah, and this movie is also, we're talking about Obsession being super successful. Backrooms, A24's biggest box office draw, which is a win. I mean, I would say so. I would say that's a win. I think there was even word that, they are working on a sequel now. So, yeah, there you go. That is the preview that is not the preview. That is the recap for April and May. Thank you so much for listening. I don't have any features because this podcast will be longer. But preview-wise, we have June. Got a lot of big movies coming out in June. We have Masters of the Universe, Scary Movie 6, The Furious, which I will do a solo review for that one. Disclosure Day, the new Steven Spielberg, Leviticus, which is another horror movie that is making waves on the film festivals and online, and could make waves at the box office maybe. The Death of Robin Hood, Toy Story 5, The Invite, Jackass 5, and then Supergirl at the end of the month. Yeah, it was good. It was good. April, May, decent movies that came out. Got a good lineup there. Let's hope it continues here in June. I hope so. And we got some good movies coming out in June. Already saw, like I mentioned, already saw The Furious. Already saw Masters of the Universe. I don't know if I'll release a solo review on that or not, or maybe I'll just lump it in with June, just because I feel like June might just be very lonely if I take 2 movies out of the recap. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But I really, just in case you listen to this episode, I really like Masters of the Universe. I think you should go watch it. And I really like The Furious. I think you should go watch that too. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I very much appreciate it. I know this is overdue. I will try not to have this happen again. But no promises, but I will try not to make this happen again. And yeah, I look forward to the Furious recap after this. Before, I'm still figuring out the schedule for that. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But it's coming. I already recorded it. It's coming out. Don't worry about it. I also recorded something for Master of the Universe, so maybe I'll release that too after the fact. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, summer's coming. Summer's here rather, and my schedule's going to be a little open, so there will definitely be more episodes this summer for you guys. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I very much appreciate it. Go be good people, be safe, and as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!